Hello, 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 beautiful people. Welcome to Rootbound, the podcast, not about plants. Welcome to episode 9. So it's been about 2 weeks since I loaded an episode, and you may be wondering why if you haven't followed me on Instagram, but we'll get into that later. But let's do a couple of updates first. I'm now approaching my month anniversary starting my new job, and when I filmed the episode I cried my first day, I was literally within the first week of working at the new company. So a lot of time has passed, so let's give an update of how that's going. I am finally feeling a little bit more normal. I'm getting somewhat of a flow to my day. It's not as structured as I would like, but I'm learning to embrace that and utilize that flexibility to, just do other things, take on different projects, have initiative in certain areas. But, for the most part, there's so many different access things that I needed. I have access to basically everything that I need. There's only like 1 or 2 things that I'm waiting for, but pretty much everything that I need to do my job, I either have access to or I know how to get it. I know a workaround, just trying to figure out, navigating the system that I now work in. I feel a little bit better. With COVID though, I don't really know a lot of key players that I think I might have been introduced to by now if it wasn't COVID. But so many people are working off campus, so many people are working in isolation. So it's not as warm and welcoming as I'm assuming I would experience pre-COVID. So trying to navigate that, and I'm sure if you're starting a new job in this climate that you're probably experiencing a very similar thing. I think most companies are having a lot of different work dynamics, and so that might be challenging if you hadn't started a job. And like for me, I've been working for the same company for almost 10 years, and so all I know is orientations and going into a different system or a different company, and being toured around the facility and meeting all the key players and having lunch with people, doing projects with people side by side. Everything is virtual. And although we have so much great technology like Zoom or Microsoft Teams, it's still really limiting. I'm a very interpersonal person. I pride myself on being a personable person and getting to know people as a way to get them to help me in the future. So I feel that people help people that they know better. And so I always pride myself to how can I show that I am an asset to a team? How can I show that I'm supportive and that I'm helpful before I start to ask and to take? And because we're in this climate where I don't get to really utilize that strength, I find myself having to ask for help more than I find myself helping right now. And so that's a total different dynamic for me. And I feel, hopefully in the months to come, I could feel that I'm actually, that's starting to kind of balance itself out. And so we'll see. I'll give an update as it goes. But a month in, I have a schedule. I'm feeling really good. I'm getting a lot of rest. As I said in previous episodes, I do not only am I doing my podcast, but I'm also streaming online on Twitch. And so I'm really having a good schedule with that. And so, figuring out, what my daily routine, what my weekly routine is, I feel like I'm so much closer than I was 2 weeks ago, or so much closer than I definitely was 4 weeks ago when I recorded recorded both episodes 7 and 8. So I posted something on Rootbound's Instagram page, which is root_bound_podcast, and it was my goals for the end of the year. And there are a lot of them. And what I posted that for was to hopefully encourage other people to, I wanted people to have a dialogue on their goals, but I don't think anybody did the challenge. At least they didn't post it. But at the very least, I hope that maybe if you don't post it because they're personal or it's private, I hope that you made a list of your goals, of your dreams that you want to start to accomplish before the end of the year. And let's go over a couple of mine. So I segmented out my goals and my dreams by 2 different sections. One was personal goals and dreams, and the other being professional goals and dreams. And so I'll read a few of the personal goals. I had a couple that pertain to my job that I have now, but I'll read the ones that pertain to the podcast. I want to get to 500 plays of my podcast. Right now we're sitting a little bit above 100, and so to get to that 500 plays milestone will feel really good for me, because that means people are finding value, even if it's just, even if I have to get to like 20 episodes, and that means that, or 30 or 50 episodes, and that means only 10 people have listened. That's 10 people that found value enough to keep coming back to this podcast. So that's a goal, to get to 500 plays. Recently through Anchor, if you ever start a podcast through Anchor, they allow you to get sponsorships after you reach a certain milestone on the Anchor app for your podcast. And so that was one of the goals that I had probably pretty early on in starting my podcast, was to get to that milestone so that I could start to monetize the podcast. I don't do this for money, but it would be wonderful if it would return the investment that I've made in creating this podcast. And I'll dream big. I want to create something pretty significant with Rootbound. I have a lot of future goals that I could see for myself with this podcast, and so one of the kind of stones on the path to those big goals is to monetize this podcast. And so that first stone is getting sponsorships through the Anchor app, which we have done that. So yay, we started doing that. But right now, Anchor, they get you connected with brands, and they give that offer to you in the app, right? So it has to go through their monetizing system. It has to go through their contacts. So what I want to challenge myself to do before the end of the year is start to reach out to brands that are in alignment with Rootbound. I started to create kind of a mental list, and so that next step actually is for me to actually write a whole list of brands that I think would be in alignment and start reaching out to them. I'm really nervous about that though, because the voice inside of my head is like, who the hell do you think you are? Like, why would that company want to give you money to promote their business? And I just have to be audacious and bodacious and brave in that next step, because there's so many different podcasts, so many different networks, so many different creators out there that just said, hey, I've got an audience, whether that's 10 people or 10 million. You got an audience that you could tap into, and that means there's a relationship there, and maybe and you're of value to a company. So, and the least they could do is ignore you or say no. That's the worst case scenario, right? But the best case scenario is that they say yes. And there's so many different YouTube videos out there to help and to help you figure out how to do that. So that's a goal in the next 2 months of the year, that I will start reaching out to companies. And I'm just going to go through a laundry list of companies and just start mass emailing and contacting and hopefully something sticks to the wall. And if not, by the end of the year, something doesn't stick to the wall, I will continue to develop that skill and keep pushing. Because I think that doing that builds your confidence. And right now I have very little confidence, but I have the nerve, right? So that's one of the goals for the podcast. Another professional goal, it's also a personal goal. My sister and I have started talking about, well, we've been talking about it, and I've actually tried to encourage her to do so for years. And I finally think that we're here, but to invest in real estate. And so her and I we've saved a lot of money in the last few years. A lot of things that we've been able to do or not have been able to do because of COVID, we've put money aside. I talked about that in a previous episode. And so I don't want to just keep that money in a savings account. And so I talked to her about us going into partnership and investing in property. So we're going to start making those first steps in December, early January. So I've got a financial goal of what I want to come to the table with, and she has her own. And so we're just going to take those little nest eggs and talk to some financial people and some real estate people and figure out where can we buy. And that's going to be our first step into real estate investment. And I'm really excited for that because I think that that's one of the ways for you to build wealth. And I'm so excited to start that path. And me and my sister just quickly, briefly, not like a huge hour-long conversation, but in a brief conversation, started to dream about what's possible. And I shared why I have chosen to keep the house that I'm in and will continue to keep it because that could be such a huge support system for her children or my future children. And if we have that mindset that at least, there's going to be problems in the world. There's going to be stresses that we can't alleviate from them, that we can't avoid for them. They're humans. They're going to go through things. But at the very least, one of the things that we don't want them to have to go through is poverty. And so if we can contribute to that, if we can support that in some way of us making small sacrifices right now or huge sacrifices right now, then it's worth it. And not only that for them, but for us, it would be wonderful for us to enjoy, our 40s or 50s or 60s and the rest of our lives because we've made decisions now in our 30s. And so investing in real estate is one way. I would love to take the money I have right now and buy myself a bigger house or even buy a new car. I really want a Tesla. But I told myself that could be a 40th birthday present for myself that, I've got 4 years to, it's like 5 years, but it's getting really close to 4. But so basically 4, I got 4 years to afford that Tesla. And if I am smart with my money, I won't have to, finance it. So that's a goal. So let's talk about my, personal goals. And I wrote these like 2 weeks ago. So I'll just do a check on how I'm doing with all these with you guys and just be very transparent. The first one, work out 4 times a week. I am not doing very good with this. The last week and a half have been crazy busy in a lot of ways and slow in a lot of ways. And I won't go too much into it because that's basically what this episode is about. But I've probably worked out 2-3 times a week, and they're not high impact. And so I need to call myself out on that. But at the very least, though, I've been meal prepping, and I've been sticking mostly 85% of the time. I've been sticking to my meal prep, and so I feel really good that although the workout's not where I want it to be, I'm sticking to my meal prep. And so then that's good. Sleeping 7 hours a night. I'm not doing really good at that. I am such a bad sleeper. I can stay up till like 12, 1 o'clock and still be like, I could stay up for a couple more hours. So I'm just not doing good at that. I'm a night owl by nature. But unfortunately, I have a actual job now that I have to get up to. And I get up around probably 6:45 around that time, sometimes a little bit earlier depending on what meetings are going on. And so going to bed at 1 o'clock really is painful. So that's something I definitely need to work at. The next one is a Bible study once a week. So I wrote this probably a week ago, 2 weeks ago. I have not done a Bible study once a week. Again, all this is discipline, and I need to, just as much as I plan my work life on a calendar, this stuff needs to start going on a calendar. Is just kind of what I'm feeling like I need to do. Another personal goal, and this will be the last one that I write, but it's quality time with my mom twice a month. And that's just one-to-one time with her, or time with my sister and her, my niece and nephew and her. But it's just being intentional about, I'm building so much, I'm dreaming so much. I don't want to look up and realize that I haven't spent a lot of time with my mom, because there has been times like that in my life that I've been so tunnel visioned on either relationships or just my own stuff. And I look up and I'm like, shoot, I really haven't spent time with my mom. And so I encouraged people on Instagram that make your list of your professional and your personal goals, but make sure that you are being intentional about the relationships that are the most important to you. And I love so many people in my life, but my mother is my number one person that I feel like I have to hold that time very preciously, because she's my mom. And me and my sister could be, we do a lot of stuff together, and we're really close, and we do a lot of stuff together, whether that's we're physically together, or we're playing the video game together, or we FaceTime each other throughout the day. But I realize my mother and I don't have that same kind of flow, and it's probably just because me and my sister were twins, and so we have a lot of the same interests. So I have to be more intentional about spending time with my mom. And one day we went out to dinner together unexpectedly in the middle of the week, and it was really nice. We were able to talk about her job, my job, where she's at with certain friendships, where I'm at with certain friendships, and it was actually really nice. And so I wrote this down after experiencing that and saying, okay, I need to be intentional about spending time with her, because my mom's a freaking dope ass person. She's a very open heart person. She's the reason why I believe that I'm also an open heart giving person. And I just love being around her. She's a Taurus, so if you know anything about Taurus, they're very determined and very stubborn, but so are Aries. So, sometimes we, like mothers and daughters all the time, we butt heads, but at the end of the day, I only have one mom, and I'm extremely lucky to have the mother that I have. And I want to spend more time with her. So those are my goals that I wrote down. And I wrote that down after the last episode of Continue to Dream, and of, telling people to continue to dream and dream big and things like that. So these are the things I want to do before the end of the year, and having this built into practice. So I've got 2 months now, basically, to do all these things, get a structure, because I think I know that when I do this, it'll just set my year up for 2020 to be more productive and more intentional. And so this is kind of a way of me starting New Year's resolutions, but setting them early and creating habits and paths and a pathway to be successful for the next year. So that's that. Okay, so let's get into this episode 9. And we're titling it, I'm Tired of Being Strong. As I say that title, if it resonates with you, I want you to just put your hand on your heart, because I'm doing that right now, and know that you're not alone. It's tiring to always have to pick yourself up. It's tiring to always have to be the bigger person. It's tiring to continue to do good. I don't know if you guys are faith-based people. Like I've said before, I am. I'm very spiritual and, you know, all that mushy Bible stuff. I'm not going to preach to you, I promise. But one of the Bible verses that come out to mind for me is, do not be weary of doing good, right? And so, and again, I don't know where that's in the Bible, but I know that's a verse. I'm just being honest with you guys. I'm not a big memorize of where things are in the Bible and all that stuff. That's just not me. But when something rings true for me, I remember it. And that's one of the Bible verses I remember one of my pastors saying is, don't grow weary of doing good. And I think that sounds kind of obvious, like, hey, if you're doing good, don't worry about it. And until you actually experience being good and feeling like it's either not being reciprocated, or it's not being appreciated, or it's not being acknowledged, until you experience that, I don't think you truly know what that verse is talking about. And so there wasn't an episode for Rootbound last week because I started to get weary of doing good. I was feeling really good. I felt like I was giving to the universe, not just with this podcast, but just in general. And I hit a wall. I hit a real wall that that like dark feelings and dark voices were, basically telling me that what I'm doing with this podcast or what I'm doing with my streaming doesn't matter, that it's not valuable, that it's that same thing like I said with me reaching out to brands. It's like, who do you think you are to, one, ask people to listen to you every week? There's all these smart, talented people that are on podcasts. I've mentioned before, growing to be one of my favorite podcasts right now is Lovers and Friends, and how inspiring her podcast is. And at the same time, it's also intimidating. I follow Shan Booty's sister on Instagram, and she posted a video that basically showed the background workings of the podcast. So Shan and a couple of people, production, makeup, hair, whatever, they film it. Then her sister edits the visual, and then her husband puts the scoring together. And then Shan will go through and do her final edits and final kind of corrections and things like that. And then there's some kind of sign off with companies, I guess, and then there's this end product. So there's so many people involved in every episode. And although, again, at the forefront, it's inspiring, because how wonderful will it be to be at that place? And again, she's been doing that work for 10 years, and to see her growth. And I've seen her growth, to her doing stuff by herself to now. How amazing it is. It's very inspiring. At the same time, the little negative critical voice in my head goes, it's just you. It's just you and a $20 mic recording on your phone, and you want people to listen to you? And that voice kept going on in my head. And although I have a bunch of different episodes already planned out, let me fold to it. I have about 12, 14 episodes already listed to do. So I know what I want to talk about. I hit a wall 2 weeks ago after recording those last two that I just made me feel like, what am I doing this for? Does it really matter? And I think the other thing that happens, I don't know if any of you guys ever edit content of your own voice. You start to, I don't like my voice. I really don't. I can hear my voice saying something very confidently, and I do believe in it, But I am so critical of myself, I'm in the back of my head saying, what the fuck are you talking about? What are you talking about? Are you sure that's right? Did you say that right? Are you sure that's true? Are you sure that's accurate? Are you sure that you should be telling people that? So I'm editing my material. Even a 45-minute video can take me 2 to 3 hours to record or to edit. So for 3 hours, I'm hearing my voice, and there's moments that I'm like, wow, that was really cool. But there's a lot more moments that I'm like, you don't sound like Shan Boujram. You don't sound like all these other podcasters that are just got these $1,000 setups, right? And so this voice in my head is just pulling myself apart, and I just have to remember, and I'm gonna keep going through this, I'm sure. I have to remember that I cannot measure my hour 100. I imagine I've spent 100 hours doing this podcast by now, between editing, researching, uploading, recording, promoting, all those things. I imagine I'm in the 100 hours by now. I can't judge my 100 hours to someone's 1 millionth hour or their 10,000th hour. And so I had to really draw back on that in that moment. The other thing that was really limiting to me is, I'm going through a lot emotionally, and there's just certain things I won't talk about, but I'll just flat out say it. I had a relationship and it ended, and that's been a really hard transition for me. I don't imagine I'm going to talk about that anytime soon, because I think I'm still processing it, and I want to be respectful of myself and of that person. But I will say that doing life with somebody for a really long time and then it being over has been hard. If you know much about the science of breaking up with someone, it's not just that you don't see them anymore. It's now your whole body is going through a different regulation. When you spend a lot of time with somebody, your body syncs up to them. There's been studies about your heartbeat being very similar to your hormones being regulated because this person is with you. Even pets, right? Because we're humans, we're animals too, in the same sense. But you pet an animal, right? All this oxytocin, comes up to the surface, and all that does well for their health, right? So the same thing goes for humans. You're with somebody, you love them, and you're getting all this love and appreciation and care and things like that. And so all your hormone levels, all your good hormone levels, all your feel-good hormone, oxytocin is increased, right? And so when you break up and you don't have that person around you anymore, you're dealing with a loss of a relationship that meant a lot to you, and then also your body's grieving not having the same chemical feelings that it had. And so I, for the most part, I've been okay. I'm okay, but there have been times that I haven't been okay, and it's hard to, I don't know how many people are single out there, but when you're having a hard day, when you're having a good day, and not having somebody to share that with is really hard. I could share it with my mom, I could share it with my sister. Yeah, sure. But it's different, right? And so, so I've had to deal with that too. So anyway, I'm trying to move on. And so, I'm sorry. So the last 2 weeks, I don't know, I've just felt kind of lonely, and having all those negative thoughts about my place and my audacity to do the things that I'm doing right now. It's it's been hard to balance it, and I even really kind of, it was very fleeting, I'll tell you, very fleeting for me to I considered me not doing the podcast anymore, and saying, well, maybe I need to take a pause on it. But one of my friends that I used to work with, she had called me, and it was not during a moment that I was feeling really bad, but it was in that same kind of air. I was still feeling it, and she had called me and just told me how she just gave me a lot of encouragement and praises about the podcast. And so, Pam, if you're listening, I really appreciate it. Your words have lifted me up. Your texts have lifted me up. And to know that you're appreciating it, because I know how smart this lady is, guys. She's so freaking smart, and she's very successful in her own right and has a beautiful family. And so to know that she's finding value in my little podcast really blesses my heart. And so that being told from somebody who doesn't need to tell me that they like my podcast or they're enjoying it, right? She doesn't need to tell me that. I'm not like her granddaughter that she's like, you know, your granddaughter knits you like a really jacked up scarf and you go, oh, I love it, honey, right? She doesn't have to tell me she loves it. But the fact that she goes out of her way to tell me that, I really do appreciate it. So thank you, Pam. What else? The other thing that's happening with, I think I'm going to go to every other week, guys, because I have been listening to a lot of people on YouTube that have podcasts, and they warn folks about the, like, writer's block. It's podcast block. And it's when you get so caught up in the whirlwind of making content, that after a while you just get so burnt out. And this guy that I watched on YouTube talks about podcasting being a marathon and not a sprint. And so if I want my podcast to be something I do for the long term and continue to grow and continue to learn, to reevaluate what's important to me. And so what's really important to me is that I put out really good content, but at the same time, my content is about my self-reflection. My content right now is about where I'm at in my journey, and I can't and I don't want to fabricate that process just to put content out, if that makes sense. And so I think I've hinted at the fact that this first season's all about me, like an Aries, like a natural Aries would do. Everything's about me. No, so it's about me and my thought process, but I foresee season 2 being about other people and having them on, interviewing them, and talking about the aspects of their life that they are or have been root bound in. And so if you think that you would be interested in doing that, send me a DM, send me a message. I've got kind of a short list of people that I already know I want to tap into, but that's going to be season 2. That won't happen for a while because like I said, I foresee season 1 being at least 20 episodes. And so, that gives me time to really craft season 2 and really be thoughtful. I've got a laundry list of questions that I already am kind of filtering through to ask guests. But if you think that you'd be interested or you just resonate with the material, send me a message and I'll put you on my list of guests, because I think that that's, although I love when people connect to me and they say, man, I see myself in what you're talking about, some people don't. And I think that or they don't, or they go, well, where else could this happen, right? I'm not being laid off, so where else could this happen? I believe having guests on to talk about their perspectives can really elevate the conversation. So if that's you and you're feeling drawn to that, hit me up, DM on Instagram, on Instagram, root_bound_podcast, and let me know that you're interested. So I want to end the episode by reaching out, calling out, extending my hand to those of you that are warriors, that are strong. It may even be the trait that people admire about you the most. And you might find yourself really tired in being strong, that you want to be weak sometimes. You don't, and also you want things to go well for you, that you don't have to be strong to pick yourself up every freaking turn that you make. I want to speak to you guys because I'm that person. I imagine that if you ask people that I know, that they would say that I'm strong, right? That'd be one of the things that would come up to their minds about me. And in fact, it's one of the traits that I admire about my mother too. And I don't know if she could relate to this topic, but you get tired of having to be strong, to be the bigger person. And what I would say to you is honor those feelings. Don't push them aside, because one of the titles I played around with this episode is toxic positivity. Because the culture of being uberly toxically positive, like, it makes you feel like you can't acknowledge the fact that you're tired of being strong. The toxic positivity culture will make you go, you'll be fine, get to the other side of the road. Okay, that might be good and dandy for some people. I'm a little bit more realistic in saying, you know what, acknowledge that you feel that way. Acknowledge that you're tired. Figure out why you're tired. And for me, I was lonely. I'll just be honest. I was lonely, and I wanted to share the good things in my life as well as the hard things in my life with a partner. And I didn't have those things. And so instead of leaning into that loneliness to the point where it was like depression, or even leaning into it to the point where I'm just letting anybody in my life just to fill the gap, I chose to just acknowledge that I'm lonely and try to acknowledge what I want in the future and how I'm going to get there, and being okay with being in a transition right now. I'm newly single, and so at the same time that I want to hurry up and move on, I have to allow myself to grieve, allow myself to honor the beautiful relationship that was. It didn't work out, but it was still beautiful, and I was very blessed to experience it for the moment that I was able to. And so, I needed to honor those memories and honor my own emotions right now, and say, you know what? There is better for me in the future. There is something good for me in the future. And the world, if you're a woman and you're older and you're around my age, they make you feel like once you hit your 30s and you're a woman, that you're dead. You're dead. If you don't have your partner, it's like musical chairs. If you don't have a chair when the music stops, you're dead. And so 30 years old is when the music starts to stop. And so you get kind of panicked. I'll be honest. You get really panicky, and you're like, shit. We've gone through 4 rounds of musical chairs, and I still ain't got a seat. And so I just have to deal with my anxiety around that area and say, you know what? The speed in which I get to lifelong partnership is not the goal. The goal is lifelong partner that we're healthy, we're happy, and we're committed. And I've said this before, if I have to wait the rest of my life, I don't know why I'm crying every time I say this, because I've said this to a couple people. If I have to wait the rest of my life or until I'm older to meet a love that is so genuine, that leans in towards me as I lean in towards him, I will wait. I will wait. Doesn't mean I won't date, because you don't know you're going to have that until you date, right? I'm not saying they got to come ready with that energy, but I will wait for, I know what I bring as a partner, and so I will wait for the right person to meet me with that same level of commitment, that same level of openness, that same level of readiness, that same level of devotion. And so, and the other side of that too, if you're single and you're experiencing something similar, if you're a good partner, realize you're a good fucking partner. If you're not, and you have unhealthy habits, figure that shit out and work through it. But I will tell you, I'm not a perfect partner, but I'm a damn good partner. I'm a damn good partner. And part of how I've picked myself up these last couple of weeks and saying, you know what, instead of me being critical on what I didn't do, what I could have done better, this and this and this, there's things I'm going to work on. Obviously, I'm not just totally going, well, I'm perfect. No, there's things I'm going to work on. But I needed a moment and multiple moments to say, Tamra, you're a fucking good partner. Whoever you end up with is going to be lucky because you show up like this, you love like this, you're committed like this, you listen and you watch and you observe your partner like this, and you show up like this. And all those traits I learned from my mom. So I know my mom and how she loves, and I love very similarly. And so, you know, again, I'm not perfect. There'll be things that I'll continue to have to work on, but I'm a damn good partner. And I'll be honest, my ex was a damn good partner too. And so just because we're not together doesn't mean he was a bad person. And, you know, I used to think when people broke up when they're younger, when I was younger, it's like, you got to bash him. Fuck that guy. Fuck that girl. Throw him through the mud. No, when you're an adult, you just go, okay, didn't work out. You know, certain things didn't happen, so it didn't work out. You know, I'm not going to throw him through the mud because that's really a reflection on me. If I'm like, this guy's like this, I'm like, well, you knew that and you stayed with him? I always scratch my head when people say that, when they talk about their partners they were with for so many years and they're like throwing them through the mud. Oh yeah, he's a liar, he's a stealer, and he's a manipulator. Well, you stayed with him for years. So instead of pointing the finger at him, you need to probably go to therapy and look at yourself, right? And I know that people do that as a way to, it's like a coping mechanism to get the sympathy or to get the shit off of their shoulders. But honestly, you need to look at yourself at the end of a relationship when it doesn't work. Whoever was the one to end things, whoever was the bad one, whatever, there's chances are that both of you have something to work on. And so that's what I've chosen to say, you know what? I need to work on some things. I need to improve some things, but you are also a damn good partner. So again, if you find yourself and you're just tired of just being strong, of having to just keep going, here's the alternative though, guys. Death. And I had to realize that. I'm like, if I'm tired of fighting, if I'm tired of being strong, you know what the option is for me that God can give to me is no more. No more. There's people that are my age that are not here anymore. You know, I talked about this in a previous episode. They don't get to keep trying. They don't get to keep trying to get this right. And I do. And I don't want to, you know, I won't have any choice in the matter, but I don't want to leave this planet. I'm not ready yet. And so with that said, if I'm not ready yet because I've got more work to do, more things I want to explore, more life I want to live, guess what happens because I want those things? Trials and tribulations. We don't get to escape from it. No matter who you are, how much money you have, how beautiful you are, how tall you are, how, you know, popular you are, you're going to experience trials and tribulations. And so I can't take the beauty of life if I can't accept the negative. And so I bring it back to the Bible verse, don't grow weary of doing good. I think that you could be tired, but don't grow weary. I think weary, when I think of weary, I think of somebody laying on the ground and just giving up. Don't give up. Because I'm for sure, damn sure, not giving up. There's so much stuff I want to do until it's God's plan to take me home. There's so many things I want to do with my niece and nephew, with my sister, with my mom, for myself, finding that life partner and doing life with that person. I'm just so excited to see where those things are right now. And I know it's going to be a roller coaster of emotions that, it could be next week. We're all dealing with some form of mental, I don't know if it's mental illness. I don't know if that's the proper word, but we all deal with something mentally. And so there'll be a time where, like right now, where I feel super encouraged and ready to take on the world. And then in the flip of a light switch, I'll be completely down. But the beautiful thing, because I am a strong warrior, I know that down won't last forever. It won't, and it can't. You know why? Because my fucking mother raised me, and she raised a woman that is not just going to lay down and give up on life. She raised a woman that is strong. She raised a woman that's independent. She raised a woman that is loving. She raised a woman that is determined. She raised a confident woman, a caring woman, a smart-ass woman. And I feel so blessed again. And this really didn't mean to be a episode about my mom, but it really is. The voice that I hear a lot of the times to tell myself to keep going is my mom's voice. And she's not the super most encouraging vocal person all the time, but my mom is behind me 100%. She's not the kind of mom that'll hold you and say, "Are you okay?" And she's not like the Full House moms. She's not like that. But I know my mom has my back. I know my mom, at a drop of a dime, will help me and lift me up and take me out to go eat, just so she can say, "Well, I'm spending time with you." That's my mom. And so anyway, it means for this, I should have kept this energy for Mother's Day. But anyway, it's so true. And it's if you ever heard the saying that if you talk negative about yourself, what if you use that voice and talk to your best friend like that? You would never. So at the same time, my best friends are my mom and my sister. And so they would never say the things to me that I say to myself. Well, maybe my sister would, because she's got a little bit of, she's an Aries like me, so she can hit hard. No, I'm just kidding. But I mean it. My sister and my mom would never say the things that I say to myself. And so sometimes I can't hear my own voice. I have to replace it with, what would my mom tell me? What would my sister tell me? What does God say that I'm capable of? And I replace that with my own voice, because sometimes my own voice is the worst enemy. And I don't know if that's my voice. That might be the enemy's voice. I don't know. That's for another conversation. But I hear it obviously in my own voice. So anyway, I just want to encourage you guys that are dealing with difficulties, that have dealt with difficulties, and you just get so tired of having to revamp, reinvent, and recreate and reread your whole life, to find the voices in your life that will speak life when you can't find that yourself. And if you don't have those people in your life, you need to find some. It may be a therapist you have to pay. It may be a life coach. It may be a YouTube video that's not directly made for you, but it's for you, you know what I mean? And create those voices in your head that are louder and more positive than the negative ones. Because the same voice that says, "How dare I have the nerve to create a podcast?" I could turn that to say, "Well, why not me? I have experiences. I have life. I have an education. I have a voice. I may not have the fancy production that other people have, but I have all those other things that are valuable. And if just Pam is listening to my podcast and finds value out of it, um, that's still kind of a miracle because I can imagine how many podcasts are out there that are getting no plays. And each episode so far is averaging about 10 to 15 plays. And so, how dare I believe that I have a voice? Well, I do. And I'm gonna work it. I'm gonna use it. So, anyway, that was episode 9, guys. Thank you so much. I didn't video record this episode just because, there's so much going on. I didn't feel like setting up everything. And again, most of my episodes will be video recorded, but some of them won't be. And so this is just one of those times where we didn't video record it. But if you guys could do me a favor, it takes a couple of minutes. Go ahead and submit a Apple Podcast review. Give me 5 stars and leave like a little comment under there. That really does help. And so if I can I have one comment on there right now. It's from one of my good friends. And so if you guys could do that, that'd be really awesome. If I could get, even 4 before the end of the year, comments and ratings, I'd feel really, really just blessed. And it'll just bring so much joy to my heart to see those comments. And again, as we grow, those comments help people determine if they're going to listen. So anyway, you guys have a good rest of your week. I will see you in 2 weeks for our new schedule of Rootbound, the podcast not about plants. Bye.